Welcome. My name is Erin. I'm a therapist, and I love analyzing all things pop culture, all things movies, TV shows, whatever it is, I'm all about it. And today we're actually going to be watching and analyzing The Secret Life of Mormon Wives, which my first watch through was just wild in and of itself. But one of the big things that came out of the show was Jen and Zac. They are a couple on the show. They've been married for I don't know how many years, a few years, but they have 2 kids together. And so I think they have 2 kids. I don't know. I've already watched the show twice and I don't even know if they have 2 kids or not. But that's not to say that I haven't analyzed the crap out of their relationship. And one of the things that came out was everyone commenting on Jen's Instagram posts and TikToks and being like, you're in an abusive relationship, you need to leave, you're married to a narcissist, like watch out. And so it ignited this fire online, and I was like, well, is he? Let's look, because I'm a therapist and I could tell you. Obviously, Jen and Zac are not my clients. I am not in a therapeutic relationship with them. So take what I have to say with a grain of salt. I only have the context that's given to me. And so much of therapy is context. If you tell me that you're sleeping way more than you should be, and I ask, well, how much are you sleeping? You say, oh, like 9 hours. It's like, oh, actually that's a normal amount. But if you tell me, I'm sleeping way more than I should be, and ask you what the context of that is, and you're sleeping 9 hours and then taking 2-hour naps every other hour, okay, maybe you're depressed, or maybe you have a sleep disorder. We probably should look into that. All that to say, context is super important. I only have the context of the TV show, which is also edited because it's a reality TV show. But I think there are signs of Jen being in an abusive relationship, a verbally and emotionally abusive relationship, and definitely signs of Zac having some narcissistic tendencies, but maybe not necessarily a full-blown narcissist. So let's get into it. Let's watch it. Yeah. Also, how could I forget? My lovely cats are with us. I don't know if they're on camera right now. Sage and Sorrel are sitting in their little cat bed, and I'm sure they will hop right up on my lap to join us. So, okay. So, as always, this camera light is terrible. This close to the camera. That's fine. As always, I inform you guys of what I'm drinking today. So today, I have a Sherpa brand, which is amazing, iced chai. It's actually a dirty iced chai. I put some espresso in it. So I'm drinking it out of my favorite ghost mug, even though we are like days away from Christmas, and it's also iced, even though it's in a hot mug. So I'm just doing everything backwards today, but grab a drink. Cheers. Let's go analyze this. Okay, so before we even start, context for this show. Secret Life of Mormon Wives is based in Utah. It follows a group of Mormon women that call themselves Mom Talk. And they're all moms, and they all basically make a living doing influencing through this TikTok. So it follows not each, but the girls that have drama. It follows their individual plot lines. And so one of the girls is Jen, and she doesn't even get introduced till episode 2, but her plot line really ramps up and increases in intensity pretty quickly, so you'll start to see her more and more throughout the episodes. Let's watch her intro.
My name is Jen Affleck. I am 24 years old. I am a content creator.
Okay, so pause. So something that I already want to note and point out in watching this whole thing through multiple times is that a intention that you'll see throughout the entire show between Zac, Jen's husband, and Jen is the fact that Jen is a provider in a very traditional patriarchal religion. Jen has provided for Zac through med school, and so there's this tension between them because he and her have very traditional views, but it's also very difficult because she is the primary breadwinner, and this will come up again and again throughout their relationship. The other thing that I want to note is how adhered Jen is to traditional Mormon values. This also highly impacts her and her relationship as they move forward, as I'll point out and you'll see. So just note those two things. One being that she's the primary breadwinner, and that they both have very, very traditional values in their religion. And I would say even among the show, the girls constantly talk about how conservative Jen is, and she probably is the most traditional in her view of her relationship, of her religion, comparative to all the girls in the entire group. So that's the only intro that happens in episode 2. That's the only part she comes up in. So then we jump to episode 3, where Jen is now throwing a graduation party for Zac because he has just finished med school. You watch.
His dad is a heart surgeon. His grandpa was a surgeon. His great-grandpa was a surgeon.
Okay, so now we're getting a lay of the land of Zac's family and Zac's family system. So his grandpa was a surgeon, his dad is a surgeon, and now he's expected to follow in that legacy and in those footsteps to also be a surgeon. So there's already a familial pressure for him to be in that industry and follow in his family's footsteps. I would guess they'd probably feel like he was dishonoring the family and not doing so. And so that's another thing to note, is that there's actually a lot of family pressure and tension that I think is running in the underground of all of this. There's an undercurrent of expectation from his family. And a lot of people just view Zac as like, oh, it's all Zac. Zac's so controlling. Zac's this and that. And he is all of those things. But I think a lot of it comes and stems from his family and the expectation that his family has on him to be a surgeon. Oops, okay. So episode 4. So not a lot happens in this episode. The girls decide to go on a little girl trip, and at the girl trip, Jen talks a little bit more openly about her relationship with Zac, which is what we'll dive into here.
His head, I think he thinks, after 15 years, he'll be the provider. So he's like, my job's more important because I'm going to be providing for us for life.
But he can't get there without you doing it now.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm currently the breadwinner in my relationship. I'm providing for my kids, my husband to go to medical school. And I definitely think this is super hard for him. Coming from a traditional family, there's definitely a lot of tension in our relationship. I used to be the person that would just say yes to everything, and now I don't.
You're finding your voice.
Yes. And you know what? I'm proud of that.
Okay, so Jen says, I'm finding my voice. I'm really proud of that. And as I continue to watch the show, I don't want to take that away from her that she feels like she is, but as I watch the show, my definition of that is a little different. And I don't see her using her voice in the way that I would typically say somebody feels like they're allowed to use their voice. Because when she does use her voice, when she is honest and vulnerable about things that she cares about, things that are important to her, things that hurt her, it's not met with compassion, questions, curiosity, empathy. No, it's shut down. It's demeaning behavior. It's emotional blackmail. I'll point all those out as I see them as we move forward, but I don't think Jen has her voice, and I think she thinks she does. And maybe, and again, I'm not privy to the very insides of their relationship. So there has probably been movement for her where she's like, this is normally something I wouldn't speak up against, but this time I am. And so for her, there probably is movement, but I would love to see Jen be empowered in a way where she can use her voice and it actually be heard and resonated with and respected.
Shiz. What? Not my garments.
I have some information. What? The garment queen forgot her garment.
Okay, so this is really small, but I'm including this because, again, it shows how traditional Jen is. And she's so traditional that she wears garments. I don't know if anyone else on the show does. They don't talk about it. But the way that her friends react really, to me, imply that she is the only one that still wears garments. And she talks about how garments are a way of pointing back to God and how they're always supposed to remind you of your commitment to your husband and your commitment to God. And so she talks about how she forgot them. She didn't have any underwear at all, actually, not just garments, but any underwear. So again, shows how traditional Jen is, and she's most likely the only one in the group that is. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I wonder if Zac wants her to wear garments to remind her that she is attached to him. That would not shock me. That's just theory and conjecture. I don't have any proof of that other than like some of the controlling behaviors that Zac demonstrates in the show. But I do wonder. Okay, so now we jump to episode 5. And there's only one thing that happens in this episode. One, but I think it's important. We, for context, are at Jen and Zac's house, and they invite Dakota and Taylor over. And Taylor is pregnant with Dakota's baby. They're not married. So Dakota has never taken care of a baby in his entire life. So they're doing like this little crash course for him so that he can learn how to change a diaper, feed the baby, all that stuff. Actually, if you guys want me to do an analyzation of Taylor and Dakota's relationship, let me know. That's like one of the most dysfunctional relationships in the entire show. I'd love to talk about that one. And anyway, so this is the clip.
Gosh, is your house always this clean? I live with an OCD.
I have way bad OCD.
He's not a nice person if the house isn't clean.
That's it. That's the whole clip. But its importance, twofold. One, him being like, yeah, I have way bad OCD. I'm guessing he does not have full-blown obsessive compulsive disorder because I have not witnessed anything to show that. When he says that, I think the underlying implication is, yeah, I have way bad OCD because I like to be in control and everything has to be my way and has to be perfect. And again, that just is this trait for him that is his baseline, which is intense, controlling, demanding, judgmental. 2, when she's like, yeah, he's really not a nice person when the house isn't clean. There's a lot of ways you can interpret that. And again, we don't have Jen's personal voice saying what she means by that. So I'm going to interpret what I think it could mean. Jen saying, yeah, he's not a nice person when the house isn't clean, I think could imply that he thinks that she's in charge of keeping the household because of their traditional views of marriage. That when the house isn't clean, she's doing a bad job of keeping it clean because it's her role and her duty. And that when he's not nice, I think that's a very vague and generalized term for him being an asshole to her when the house is not in tip-top order. One of the things that narcissistic people do is have obviously control issues, but part of that stems from them thinking you're an extension of them. So how you represent yourself is actually a representation of them. And so that's one of the things that kind of plays out through Zac and Jen as I pick up on things, is this enmeshment. He doesn't have this division of where he starts and ends and where Jen starts and ends. They are 2 in 1, and he tries to manipulate and control, I think, because he sees Jen as an extension of himself. And I think the data and the proof for that is how judgmental his parents are, how much they're trying to stay under that view of the traditional views of the church. Okay, so episode 6. This is, like I said, where shit hits the fan. They decide to go to Vegas. All the girls, they're like, girls trip, let's go Vegas. And if you can believe it, shocking, Zac has an issue with this. And it plays out like this.
In fact, I think Zac is driving with Dakota.
Oh, are they coming too?
Because Dakota doesn't want to be away from Taylor. He wants to at least be in the same city just in case she goes into labor.
She goes into labor in Vegas.
So Zac basically worms his way into the trip, and he does it under the guise of saying, oh, Taylor's super pregnant and she can't fly. She could deliver at any moment. So she's going to drive with Dakota. And then this creates this ability for Zac to also come on the trip. So Zac's like, okay, Jen, let's drive with Dakota and Taylor. And Jessie comes in and she's like, I see straight through this bullshit. Like, this is 100% Zac trying to control the situation and come in and make sure that his woman stays in order, so to speak. So then we jump to Zac and Jen are talking about the trip itself and what's going to happen on the trip.
How would you feel if we went to a Magic Mike concert?
Do you want to go to that?
No, I think it's more of like a funny thing if we do end up going.
Being divorced and taking care of 2 kids would be kind of tough, so I guess you make the decision.
I hate this so much. This is just like cringy. Like, Jen doesn't start laughing. She doesn't think this is funny because she knows that Zac isn't really kidding when he says this. He says this in a sarcastic tone, which again is like very emotionally manipulative, because then he can just come back and be like, Jen, whatever. I was kidding. You knew I was kidding. He wasn't kidding. This was very intentionally said. This is emotionally abusive. This is emotionally manipulative and also narcissistic. This is very demeaning. He's also victim blaming. Oh, if you go to that, then it's your fault if we get divorced. It's your decision. It's also emotional blackmail. Which is like these threats in order to take control. So the threat is, if you go to that Magic Mike concert, if you do that male stripper thing, then I'm going to divorce you. I'm going to take your kids. So, but he plays it off like it would be her fault if she did so. So it's so subtle. It's so clever. And I don't want to give him credit, but this is why emotionally manipulative people are very smart. The next clip that we watch, though, it makes me so irate. And as you watch it, you'll understand why.
I'm just telling you right now, I would appreciate your help because
I know,
you know how stressful it is for me to work and take care of
Sweetie.
2 of the kids. Because sorry. Zac can be a bit controlling, but to be honest, I don't think I've ever met anyone who loves me more than he does.
Ooh, Jen, baby girl. No. Okay, so there's so much in this clip. Okay, first off, Jen, what is your definition of love? Because this is not it. Point blank, hard stop. I think that he has shown loving actions towards her, but that does not mean it's love. We cannot start to normalize this type of behavior and call it love. That's so dangerous. And Zac is so disconnected in this clip. I literally cannot. So Jen's coming to him. She's vulnerably saying, hey, I'm stressed out. This is really hard. I need your help. She's vulnerable and open in her communication about how she's feeling. And instead of that being met with compassion and active listening and, hey, we're a team, let's figure this out together, he grabs her shirt to cover her cleavage in the middle of her talking. That is an act of control. That is an act of superiority. That is an act of absolute demeaning behavior, which all of these things go under emotional abuse and emotional manipulation. And she immediately apologizes. She goes, oh, sorry. Instead of recognizing, why are you touching me right now? Again, that enmeshment, that lack of boundaries, which I don't know if I mentioned that in the previous clip where he's like, okay, we're going to Vegas together. That, again, is that enmeshment, that lack of boundaries. You don't get to make your own choices. I'm coming to make them for you. And so, again, that just underscores all of his behavior with her is so inappropriate, and it makes me so irate for her to be so vulnerable and open about what you need, and to be met in such a demeaning way is incredibly, it's just disgusting. It makes me so upset for her. Okay. Where are we? Are we in episode 6 yet? The other important thing that I want to mention about this, I forgot to mention also the sense of entitlement that he has to just do that, and also how childlike he's treating her. But that's, I digress. I've talked about how disgusting that is already. When she's talking about, no one's ever loved me as much as he does, I'm really curious if what he's actually showing her is love bombing, which is this form of praise and adoration, and it's really intense and it's really numerous, and then all of a sudden they shift and you see this other side of them and you're like, wait, what? you were just so nice to me, and now you're being really demeaning. Now you're treating me like a child. I don't understand. But the point of love bombing is it brings on this fog, in a sense, where you can't accurately see your relationship, because there are some days where it's so good and you're like, I feel so good, I feel so appreciated, like they really care, they love me so deeply. And then the next day you're like, the hell just happened? I feel so confused. Yesterday or the last 2 days were so good. And so like when Jen's saying like he's never loved anyone as like I've never been loved as much as he has loved me, I'm like, is it love or is it love bombing, friend? Because love bombing is an emotional manipulation. Oh! All right. So we're still in episode 6. A lot happens in this episode. And even more happens in the next 2. So we're nearing the end of the episode 6, though. And near the end, they get to Vegas. They're like, woohoo, let's go, girls trip. And I think it's Jesse's like, let's set ground rules. And as she's setting these ground rules, Zac inserts himself.
You're a big girl. You can do whatever you want.
Woo!
Wait, do you mean that?
Did Jen just get
No, not at all.
Oh, I was like,
I just cannot with it. So he wants to come off really cool in front of her friends, and I think he knows that Jen's friends are the only ones that will really get to her in terms of pushing back against him. And so he's trying to appease them in a sense where he's like, yeah, I'm cool. It's Jen can do whatever she wants. Like, I trust her. But then as soon as he's challenged on it, he's like, no, it's not actually what I mean. Of course not. I'm controlling and she's going to do what I say. So this clip, again, it shows Zac being degrading, controlling, superior, all the things that really make an emotionally abusive and emotionally traumatizing relationship. So let's keep watching if my heart can handle it.
I know Zac has a lot of his flaws. He can be a bit controlling and a bit judgmental. I think his issue is that he loves and cares too much.
Jen, that is not his issue. Jen, his issue is that he is probably deeply insecure and feels an intense pressure from his family in the Mormon church to be the patriarch of your family, and you are single-handedly preventing that, which is not a bad thing, but to him it is. Anyway, what I actually want to say about this is when she says, I think he cares just too much about me, like he loves me so much. I already talked about love bombing, but some of actually what I also see in this is Jen's fight, flight, freeze response. So in recent years, they've actually added a fourth to fight, flight, freeze, which is the typical anxiety response. You do one of the three. You can't control which one you do. It's kind of innate and just depends on the situation and the intensity of the situation. So you fall into one of those three, and they've added a fourth. It's called Fawn. And so when it's fight, flight, freeze, fawn has been added for people who have been in typically abusive relationships with a narcissist. And fawn is a response because you've tried fight, flight, freeze, and none of them have worked repeatedly. So what you end up doing is fawning behavior, which means you cuddle up next to the person, you try and appease them, you actually try this very kind behavior, which feels so counterintuitive for how they're treating you, but your brain thinks, oh, maybe if I can appease them, maybe if I can get really close to them, they'll stop treating me this way. And so Jen has made herself believe that, oh, Zac's actually just so loving that this is the issue. He just cares too much. Like, lucky me. Jen, no, that's not the problem, friend. Oh. Okay. So now we're towards the end of the episode. And this is where I'm going to start talking about the cycle of abuse, because this is where I can start to point things out. I probably could have started to point things out earlier, but this is where it's really tangible. So the girls are in a car and they're getting ready to go somewhere. Jesse has planned an event and they don't know what it is. And so they start talking, and then this kind of unfolds. So they figure out they're going to Chippendales, which is a male entertainment show in Vegas. It's pretty scandalous, especially in terms of the Mormon church. A lot of people would probably believe that's inappropriate to go to. But Jesse plans this. It's a surprise. No, none of the girls know that they're going. And then Jen's reaction is this.
I should have known. I should have known. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm screwed. I'm screwed. I'm screwed.
So Jen is like, I'm screwed. Don't tell Zac yet. This is bad. And this is where the abuse cycle starts. Well, it's already started. We're in the middle of it. This is where we are in the cycle. Right at the top, we're at tension building. Tension building is also known as kind of the eggshell walking phase. It's where there's like lots of small little things that add up, and you constantly feel like you're walking on eggshells because you're not sure how the person's going to respond or what might set them off. So after the tension building phase, we go into incident, where there's actual harm done. There's somebody throws a punch, or, the insult is said. There's an actual reaction and event to the tension building. And then you dip into the honeymoon phase, which is everything's great. He's apologized. He said he'll never do it again. Everything's going to be totally beautiful from here on out. And then there is another phase that some people say, like, some relationships just skip over and go straight back into the tension building phase. But there is like this kind of resolution phase where you're just kind of like neutral. Everything's neutral. You're not quite in the honeymoon phase. You're not in the tension building, but things are like quote unquote normal again. So right now, again, we're in the tension building, and we'll watch as we rise into the incident. So Jen, as you'll observe kind of in this clip, she doesn't want anything to do with this. She's incredibly uncomfortable. She kind of stands off to the side. She like doesn't make eye contact with the men. She does not touch them. She's like, oh my God, I like don't know what to do with myself at all. So she's trying to disengage from the process without completely disengaging from her friends, because she feels this internal pull. I'm here for my friend Layla's birthday. I didn't even mention that. That's why they're in Vegas. They do a girls trip for Layla's birthday. She's never been to Vegas. And so she's like, I'm trying to be here to support my friend Layla and be present with her, but this thing is really uncomfortable. So I'm trying to find my own internal boundaries of how do I navigate this. And to her, this seems rational to me. To her, that is taking a step off to the side so that she's not really involved with this whole behind the scenes stage thing where all the girls are rubbing the men with oil. And she's like, this is too much for me. So Jen goes on and she sets some more boundaries. This is what she says.
I could do it for Layla and have fun, but like the minute they try to make me go up there or dance on me is the minute I'm out.
Just
because
say no.
I literally will be a divorced woman. I'm not even kidding. Like, I'm not even just jokingly saying that. Like, I'm literally telling you Zac would literally divorce me over something like this.
Okay, just look at the stress on Jen's face in this clip. Like, she's clearly not okay. She's clearly very overwhelmed by what's happening here. But the fact that she's like, Zac would seriously divorce me over something like this. Again, emotional manipulation, like complete gaslighting. Like, this would be your fault because you went to this thing. Complete victim blaming. I'm the victim, as in Zac saying this. I'm the victim because you went to this thing without permission, and this is all your fault. And now I'm the victim of divorce because of you. It's also so much emotional blackmailing, again, like that threat to withhold connection and love from somebody. Oh man, I feel really bad for Jen in this moment. First, she decides to tell Zac.
Don't worry, nothing's happening. Babe, I'm literally, it's a joke. Like, Macy went with her mom to this.
So this is incident. This is in the cycle of abuse. We moved from tension to incident. The incident being that she decided to go to the Chippendales show, and his response to that is incredibly poor.
Can you just stop for a second and just like think of me as a person and my character? Can you just think about me, please?
She immediately starts crying on the phone with him. So I can only imagine what this poor girl is hearing from him, that she so quickly moved into this teary, weepy state. Yeah, I don't Part of me doesn't even want to know.
I mean, I'm in trouble.
Like, he doesn't want to be married to me if I do stuff like this.
Gosh, he really does want a divorce. Like, basically, I'm thinking, what did I do?
But just started questioning me and my character and just started saying, like, why would you even put yourself in this situation? It's like, I didn't even put myself in this situation.
It was a surprise.
Yes.
So we didn't know we were coming.
Exactly.
So many things. Okay, he's victim blaming. Why did you put yourself in this situation? She didn't. He's completely guilt tripping. Why did you put yourself in this situation? I don't want to be married to you if you're going to do things like this. Again, that emotional blackmail, it's demeaning, it's controlling, it's that enmeshment. What you being there is a reflection of me. It's the epitome of emotionally abusive, quite frankly. It's also so narcissistic too, on like so many levels, to just think that you can treat a person like that and it's okay. At the end of the day, like, I don't think Zac is a full-blown narcissist, and I have only these episodes to go off of to say that. Like, if I had all of the criteria for narcissistic personality disorder, which is NPD, if I had all the criteria laid out for NPD, I don't have quite enough of it to fully diagnose him as that. And he's also not my client, so I can't formally do that, and it would be inappropriate to do so. That being said, he definitely shows traits of narcissism, and I do really believe that Jen is in an emotionally abusive relationship, and it's hard to watch. My empathy for her is very deep. And the other thing that's super, super important to note is Jen saying, can't you just trust my character and who I am? So often we ask the question, why don't they just leave? And sometimes we ask it innocently. Sometimes we ask it accusatorily in a victim blaming way. I want to talk about that for a minute because it's so layered and it is so complex why people do not just quote unquote leave their abusive relationships. I think in this situation with Jen, it's multiple things. I think it's one, being in a traditional Mormon relationship where divorce is not only frowned upon, but pretty harshly judged in the church. I wonder if Zac's family, because I'm sure that they're pretty rich, knowing that his family is a legacy of surgeons. I wonder how involved they are in the church and how well known their image is in the church and how much they want to preserve that. And they don't talk about that on the show at all. But knowing the Mormon religion, I'm really curious, like, if they're really big donors to the church and if they have really big involvement, because that's going to also prevent Jen from leaving because of the image that would portray. Another reason is Jen's sense of self-worth and self-esteem has been slowly chipped away at. And this is true for many people in abusive relationships. Their sense of self and their sense of worth just slowly degrades, because it's not like these one-time events where it's like, you suck, and then you move on. It's these very subtle comments that are said with the intention to harm, and you hear them daily. And so it's just this very slow burn, this very slow degradation of her self-esteem. So when she's saying, like, why can't you just trust me and my character? Well, that's part of what he's doing to get you to stay, is he's questioning your character. So then you feel this desire to stay and show him, no, I am the person that you think I am. I can be the person that you want me to be because I care so deeply for you, which is really just so, it's just so sad. It's twofold. It's like she doesn't have enough confidence to leave, but she also wants to prove to him that she is the person that he thinks she is. Or you know what I mean. So there's so many layers to this. And I think another is also that they have kids. Like, they don't show their kids much in the show other than the baby blessing, but kids add a whole another level of complexity to the decision to leave a relationship, and they have kids. So there's so many things that go into this of like, why doesn't Jen just leave? Well, look at this laundry list of reasons not to. So that's the end of this episode. And episode 8 or 7, the next episode, we watch a lot, even more unfold than it already has between Jen and Zac. Okay, so we now enter episode 7, and Taylor leaves the Chippendales show because Dakota is also uncomfortable with her being there. So Taylor leaves on her own accord, and she brings Jen home with her because, you know, it's very obvious that Zac doesn't want Jen there. So they go home and they start talking.
The text message that Zac just sent me was, "I'm done, Jen. Not interested in talking. I can't do this anymore with you."
What a freaking drama queen. This is really interesting. So I think this is a sign of Gottman's 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which are not the ones that you think about in the Bible. They're actually from this researcher who did a lot of research on families and couples and why people stay together. And so he created this theory called Gottman's 4 horses. And each horse represents an action in a relationship that basically indicates the relationship is heading towards the end of its time. So it's criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. So if you see those 4 present in a relationship, it kind of predicts that this relationship is on its last legs. Again, it's just a theory. It's not, this. If you see these things, then watch out because your relationship is for sure over. I think if you see those things, then you can recognize like, okay, this is where our relationship isn't headed in a healthy direction. We're not communicating well. The way that we talk to one another is not supportive. We're not on the same team when we're arguing. Like, this isn't going well. So just recognize that, like, it doesn't mean that it has to be the end of your relationship. It just means that there's some things that could be worked on and improved upon. So the one that is present here, and I'll point them out as I see them, is stonewalling. Stonewalling is basically cutting off contact from the person, saying, I'm not talking to you anymore. I'm done. So he does exactly this. He said, I don't even want to be married to you anymore, Jen. Like, stop talking to me. Like a freaking 2-year-old. So stonewalling. That happens first in this relationship. Let's keep watching.
You say I'm not going to be married to someone who doesn't have values and morals. Like,
What? He texts that?
yes, it's like, what have I done in this situation to like lose your trust?
I'm not going to be married to somebody who doesn't have values and morals. Contempt. Criticism. Hits both those points. Let's keep watching.
He has no right to like be saying those things and threatening your marriage. That's really weird to me. Someone who carried 2 of your freaking children and has been nothing but supportive and bending over backwards to try to support him through medical school and everything. That's gross. Sorry. There's no other way to put it. That's gross.
Let's freaking go, Demi. Go off. Like, I love Demi in this moment because she is shining a bright light through all of Jen's fog. Jen's like, I don't know, he's saying these things to me. Like, she's really defeated. She's very clearly very distraught about it. And Demi's like, Jen, what the hell? This isn't okay. He can't say these things to you. And I love Demi for it. I love that she's just like calling it as she sees it. And she's here to stick up for her friend and the injustice that her friend is experiencing. Can you tell that I am passionate about things that are unjust? Okay, so then this clip starts playing where we recognize that Jen just left. Nobody knows where she went. She just left in the middle of the night. And Taylor's like, yeah, Dakota told me that Zac was out gambling until 1:30 a.m. And then I think Taylor left around 2. And so Zac was just being a complete hypocrite per usual and was out there gambling while his wife was in a desperate state of mind, anxious as all can be, and very upset because he was refusing to talk to her, which is such punishing behavior. Again, very narcissistic for him to show his superiority. I'm in control of this. You'll talk to me when I say you'll talk to me. very belittling, very demeaning to her. Like, you don't deserve to talk to me right now. Why don't you go over there and sit and think about what you've done? Think about how guilty you should feel. Again, that guilt tripping, gaslighting her and saying like, by me not talking to you, it's proving that you are in the wrong about this. Even though you had no singular control over the situation and going to the event because you had no clue that it was happening. And there's not even any empathy for her at all. Again, a narcissistic trait, lack of empathy for this recognition that she was trying her best to appease both him and her friends in that moment. And that was an incredibly hard line for her to draw. So Demi says, oh, well, guys, I saw the text messages. And this is what she says about the text messages.
Literally was 10 times worse than I could imagine. I'm done, Jen. I'm done with you. I'm done with our marriage. I'm done. You're disgusting.
He said, I don't love you anymore.
I don't love you.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, does this really need more explanation of how inappropriate all of those comments are? I don't love you anymore. He's withholding connection. I think you're disgusting. Again, that contempt, that criticism. Yeah, it's just so emotionally abusive to say those things. And then it's so emotionally manipulative. Like, I don't really feel like I need to expand upon how inappropriate those things are. If anyone ever says that to you and withholds love from you in that way, withholds connection from you, it's not okay. It's just not. If any of these things that I've been talking about kind of raise some red flags for you and you feel like you might need help, or you do know that you're in an abusive relationship and you feel like you need to get out, I'll leave some links in the bio for websites that you can visit that can help you take those first steps, which are incredibly hard to take, but incredibly courageous steps to take. And so I encourage you and I implore you, if any of this resonates with you, get help. Ask somebody, like open up to somebody that you can maybe trust at work or maybe a family member. Yeah, you deserve better. You do. Okay, so another sign of an abusive relationship is isolation and the other individual trying to slowly isolate them away from friends and family. And this is subtle at first and then pretty obvious in the end, but Zac gets Jen to come talk to him and Jen just falls off the face of the earth. Nobody knows where she went. She's not talking to anybody. She doesn't let anybody know what's going on. So they're all at the pool, and finally Jen gets a text, or Jen texts one of the girls and is like, that was the hardest night of my life, but it was really good. We talked about everything. And Demi then says this.
Or she's like, you guys, it's all fine. Like, he respects me now. Because she does that a lot where she's like, no, he understands. And I'm like, no, he doesn't.
Sorry, Jessie says it. So Jessie calls it. She's like, Jen is going to come back and be like, everything's fine. Nothing happened. Well, Jessie's mother effing psychic, because they get to dinner later that night and they call Jen and they're like, where you been? What's going on? Are you okay? This unfolds.
Things okay with you and Zac?
Oh, things are great. Oh my gosh, it was honestly so needed.
Things are great. Enter honeymoon phase. This is like so obvious. It's like textbook. They literally moved from tension, incident, straight into honeymoon. Everything is great. He knows what he did wrong. Like, I'm so glad it happened. She goes on to say that. I'm so glad it happened because we really needed to sort through all of that stuff. Jen, no. You are literally gaslighting yourself. No. So she is in a state where she's like, everything's better. I feel good. So the girls all end up getting together at the end of this episode and they kind of rally around Jen and they have this intervention of sorts. They're like, hey, this isn't okay. We don't like Zac. This is really concerning what's been happening in your relationship and you deserve better. So they say things like this.
Like, Jen, you got married at like 20.
100%, but I
don't want you to feel trapped because you're not just because you have kids with him.
I think he's disgusting.
I love you so much.
And we don't want to see this. Like this, Jen, you've done jack shit to the man. nothing but support him, nothing but love him, nothing but be there for him, and that's how you got treated. That's narcissistic. It's crazy. This is a serious thing.
I mean, thank God for Jen's friends. They're like the only ones in all of this that are able to see through his bullshit. And Jen ends up crying. She gets really teary and weepy, and she's like, this is just so hard. And they're like, of course it is, you know, this is a really big deal. And so she kind of ends the night saying, you know, this is hard for me and could be a turning point because they validated a lot of the ways that I've been feeling but haven't really been able to embrace or acknowledge. And that's where the episode pretty much ends. So after that, we jump into episode 8, which is the final episode of this season. And we get a very, I think, reflective look at a conversation with Jen and Zac individually.
But we also just found out that Zac got into medical school in New York, which was one of his top dream schools to get into. I honestly do think that we should take a year off.
I mean, technically medical school doesn't even start till August, so it does give us months to kind of like think through things and figure stuff out.
It holds me back from, you know, business opportunities with mom talk. It's mom talk. That is important to me, and I do feel like I've established that here.
Like, I'm happy with that, but I don't really care.
I mean, the blatant disregard for Jen's feelings, the most unempathic response of just like, I don't care what you want. It's so blatant. Like, it's honestly shocking to me that somebody could just be so forthright and so honest in their contempt and criticism of somebody. And defensiveness is the other one that I didn't point out from the Gottman's four Horsemen. But there's so much defensiveness behind the scenes, I think. Like, a lot of it we're not getting to see, but like, I think Zac just disengaging from the process is his form of defensiveness because he thinks he didn't do anything wrong. So there's your defensiveness. It's present in the situation. But again, like, it's just really sad at the end of the day that Jen is being so vulnerable about what she wants and what she needs and what she's passionate about and excited about. And that's met in such a disregarded way. I didn't mention this, but in the previous episode or two where the girls were in Vegas and Demi read all the text messages that Zac was sending her that was like, I don't love you anymore. I don't want to be married to you anymore. She also goes into this diatribe about him ridiculing each and individual girl in their relationship. And he said these like very nasty things about them. So it's very evident Zac doesn't like her friends and Zac doesn't want her to be a part of the group, nor does he approve her being a part of the group, as he says this when they're in New York.
Do you think I'll be missing anything at home, like with mom talk?
They're not that significant. Like, I don't think you're going to be missing out. I honestly don't.
They're insignificant. You're not going to miss them because I'm telling you, you're not. So you don't need to worry about that. And Jen saying, you haven't been your happiest self. I think that's that fawn-like behavior again, where she's just trying to appease him, make him happy so that all of this goes away and that this cycle will just end. And right now they're in that calm phase of the cycle where things are kind of normal. But it's going to be tension building again when the next thing happens. And there's going to be walking on eggshells until he reacts poorly again and treats her in a way that she doesn't deserve to be treated. And that's disrespectful. And so she's just she is stuck in the cycle, in my humble opinion. And it's sad. So that's where the show ends. We don't know if they decide to move to Vegas or move to New York or not. And in Jen's Instagram, she's kind of inferred that they're going to move to New York, which I think is really interesting. I'm kind of surprised, to be honest. But yeah, so A Secret Life of Mormon Wives, the second season comes out in the spring. I'm really excited to see what unfolds from it, because there's so many other plot lines going on during the midst of this as well. And I hope that Jen and Zac are still a part of the show, even if they do move to New York. So we'll see. I don't know. I should wrap this up, though, because my camera's about to die. But I appreciate you coming along with me as we took a journey into Jen and Zac's relationship. A little bit sad, not gonna lie, but you know, there's still hope. There's still hope that things could change, or maybe even Zac could build some self-awareness and some empathy for her, and kind of massage their relationship a little bit. But thanks for coming along. I know Sage and Sorrel had a good time. They slept the entire freaking show, but anyway. All right. I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know what I'm analyzing next, but if you have recommendations, let me know. I'd love to dive into something. So I'll see you guys soon.